on their work in the community. They might even lose their jobs as a result of this, and Betty and Barney did not want public attention. But Luttrell did print their story in 5 parts, and Betty and Barney were so upset about errors that they finally agreed to work with John Fuller on the book that is now a classic entitled Interrupted Journey, that was first published in 1966, 5 years after their encounter. And now let's continue with original 1964 hypnosis excerpts. And in this first one, you are going to hear Betty Hill laugh hard at the non-humans.
I was out in the hall, and some of the men come in, and with them is the examiner. They're quite excited. So I asked the leader, I said, what's the matter? Did something happen to Barney? And the examiner has me open my mouth, and he's checking my teeth, pulling, tugging. And the examiner said that he was very excited, and he said that Barney's teeth came out and I didn't. I said that Barney had dentures and I didn't, and that's why his teeth would come out. Then they asked me what were dentures, and I said that people, as they got older, they had to go to the dentist and have their teeth extracted, and they put in dentures. I started talking with the leader, and I said to him, this had been quite an experience. It was unbelievable. No one would ever believe me. What I needed was some proof that this had really happened. He laughed, and he said, well, what kind of proof did I want? What would I like? Something to take back with me. Then people would believe it. So he told me to look around, and maybe I could find something I would like to take. And I did. On the cabinet, there was a book, a big book. I put my hand on the book and I said, could I have this? He told me to look in the book, and I did. It had pages, writing, but not like I'd ever seen before. The writing didn't go across. It went up and down. It had short lines. Some were very thin, some were medium, and some were very heavy. It had some dots. This was going to be my proof that this had happened. He said that I could have the book, and I was delighted. This was more than I had ever hoped for. I'm standing there, and I'm saying that I had never seen anything like the book, and that I was very pleased that he had given it to me. Maybe some way I could figure out in time how to read it. So then I asked him where he was from. I knew he wasn't from the earth, and I wanted to know, where did he come from? He asked me if I knew anything about the universe, and I told him no. He said that he wished I had known more about this, and I said, I wish I did too. He went over across the room. He opened up the metal of the wall. There was an opening, and he pulled down a map. He asked me, had I ever seen a map like this before? I walked across the room, and I leaned against the table, and I looked at it, and it was a map. It wasn't square. It was wider than it was long, and there were all these dots on it, and they were scattered all over it. Some were just pinpoints, and others were as big as a nickel. And there were lines. Some of the dots, there were curved lines going from one dot to another. There was one big circle, and it had a lot of lines coming out from it. a lot of lines going to another circle, quite close, but not as big. These were heavy lines, and I asked him what they meant. He said that the boating lines were expeditions. So I asked him where was his home port. He said, "Where are you on this map?" And I looked and laughed, and I said, "I don't know." So he said, "Well then, if you don't know where you are, there wouldn't be any point of my telling you where I am." I'm all ready to go down the ramp when some of the other men, not the leader, but some of the other men are talking. They're very excited. And the leader, he's saying something. They're undecided. And then, the leader comes over and takes my book. And I said, "Oh, I'm furious." I said, "You promised me I could have the book. You gave me your word I could have it." And he said, "I know it." He said, "But the others object. They don't want you to have it." And I said, "But this is my proof. If you take the book away from me, I'll have no proof that this has happened." And he said, "That's the whole point. They don't want you to know it's happened. They want you to forget all about it. And that's why I'm taking the book. I won't forget about it. You can take the book, but you never, never, never can make me forget about it. Because I'll remember it's the last thing I ever do."
And Betty Hill did remember. And in a while, we can talk about some of the comparisons between the map, the star map, that she drew under hypnosis with Benjamin Simon back in 1964, and what astronomers began to learn about it. But I'd like to pick up with what exactly happened next. As in abduction cases, there is memory up to certain points, drama like that. And then the next thing that Betty and Barney Hill knew, they were back in their car. They were several miles down the road, probably 20 to 30 miles from the field where Barney had gotten out to look at the UFO close with his binoculars. And now they see what appears to be a flaming red-orange orb in the road, silhouetted sort of against the trees. And then they hear a series of beeping or buzzing sounds that seems to be coming to the back of their car from where their trunk is. And then they have regained full consciousness, and they start to carry on a conversation. When they arrive home, it was 5 a.m. and not the 3 a.m. that they had planned on. And so they realized they couldn't account for 2 hours, and they were very puzzled. And then they began to realize that several things were really amiss. The tops of Barney's shoes were scraped, and he couldn't explain how that happened. Barney's binocular strap was broken, and Betty's dress zipper was torn in 2 places. There was a 2-inch tear in the top right of her zipper, and there was a 1-inch tear in the top left side of her zipper fabric. And she, under hypnosis, described the non-human being trying to get her dress off quickly. Also, her hem was torn down, and the lining of her new dress was torn from hemline to waist, and she couldn't understand that. She folded that dress up and put it in her closet and did not touch it or remove it until somewhere in 1964. So the dress, with all of that evidence, was sort of set aside. The watches they were wearing that night had stopped working and were permanently destroyed, never worked again. And on the back of their car, on the trunk, were 12 or 18 circular spots about the size of silver dollars. They were all exactly the same size. And when Betty and Barney took a compass and put them on these bright, shiny spots on their car, it would spin and spin, whereas the compass would not spin on any other part of the car. Now, no one, strangely, photographed those shiny circles, even though Betty and Barney associated them with the electronic buzzing and beeping at the encounter site. And Kathy Martin remembers seeing Betty and Barney showing her mother at the car how the compass would spin and where those shiny circles were. Well, Betty had told the family that she washed